Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hemish and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 3. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining. Interested and excited to get into your story. First and foremost, do you want to give the listeners and viewers a quick overview of who you are, and then we'll go from there?
Sure. So Andrew Jones, I've been in the industry about 30 plus years, the vast majority of it on the in the biopharma, biotech, cell and gene world, cell therapies as well. Mostly enjoy the place between development and CMC, launch and inspections and all that fun stuff. And I've done quite a few of those. So excited to be here and looking forward to catching up.
Yeah, good stuff. What would you say? You obviously had a great career in over the years. Like, what would you say your biggest achievement has been since you're in your quality leadership career?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be on a lot of launch teams, done 8 BLAs. I would say the greatest, definitely the greatest experience, and I would call it an accomplishment, would have been the BLA we did for AMTAGV at Iovance Biotherapeutics. I was there when we started, we're in the midst of building a building during the pandemic and took it all the way through a BLA and led the inspections and all the inspection readiness and got on the other side of it with 0483s and got our approval in February of 2024. It's quite a good experience. At other BLAs, but that one was quite a. It was mostly because it was a great team that came together and we did unbelievable things. We accomplished unbelievable things together, and at the end of the day, we got to hold our heads high and doing something really, really well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll get into that story. But take us back a bit. How did you initially get into science, and how did that evolve into quality assurance or quality position?
Yeah, I always, as a kid, I always liked science. I wouldn't say I was like a fan of math, but over time I really started to like math for some reason. So it was sort of natural through university and later in life to get into science and engineering. My undergrad was civil engineering and geology, or what was at that point hopefully going to be an environmental engineer, which none of that ended up happening. But just I've always liked the science side of life. And that led me down a career path that put me in a position where I got to have a really positive impact on people and patients, and certainly have received the same positive impact from both people and patients. So it's been quite a great opportunity.
Yeah, amazing. So when was your first quality out and out sort of quality leadership position?
So I was the validation manager for Cardinal Health, which is now, they sold that part of the business. It's called Catalent now. Yeah. But we built a soft gel plant for R&D development type of products. So Advil liquid gels would have been a good example of what would have been made in that plant. And I moved from validation into the sort of the site quality QA role, and so that was my first foray into sort of something that was different from just math and science. It was math and science plus compliance, and that was it was quite new and intriguing. And but we were a CDMO, so we had did about 100 customer audits and a couple of really small, narrow remit type FDA inspections. But That was really the first time. So that would have been. I'm not going to give a year. It was a while ago.
Yeah, fine. So let's talk about your exposure and experience in BLAs and commercializing therapies. Did you say you've been through 8 BLAs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first 2 were at J&J. It was Cento 148 and Cento 1275, which became Symphony and Stelara, respectively. But there was a whole slew of us in quality and compliance on both of those programs. And at the end, there's not many left, and I was one of them. So that was where I really kind of cut my teeth. I was negotiating specs with R&D leadership and with FDA, and it was and it was early in my career. So sorry.
Yeah, nice. Obviously, you've seen a lot of companies going through that inspection readiness. What do you think, like, some of the biggest mistakes that companies make when they're going through that inspection readiness process in the run up to BLA?
Yeah, I think there's throughout all of this type of work, there's this natural struggle between time and patience. And, sometimes having something just in time is hard to be patient for. And so when inspection readiness starts, it's the entire ocean, and then you're trying to boil that ocean. But it's breaking it down into the subcomponents and using risk to identify those things that are really problematic, that gets you prepared for what might come up on an inspection, and you can't predict everything. So it's that type of preparation and being patient with the time it takes to get really, really inspection ready. I'm saying this from like kind of the first time through. Once you're through and you have like a playbook that you can, open up each time and you just tweak it, then you should be inspection ready pretty much at all times. But that first time through, especially with a BLA and a small, medium-sized biotech where that's their lifeline, it's hard to be patient when it takes time to do certain things. So I think that natural struggle is something that is typically underestimated, and we try to do everything all at once. And when things happen all at once, it's fraught for error, and also probably less of a complete story for the whole package. Because you have individual things that you have stories for, versus having we know this is going to be a problem. We have to have a really deeply well explained story around this. That one gets marginalized because we're focused on everything else. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, interesting. So take us then back to let's talk about Iovance, I suppose, in terms of that process of the commercialization of Amtagvi. Take us back to the beginning when you first joined, and what did the quality team look like? You were overseeing quality by the end of it, but when you came in, what position were you, and what was your remit? And I guess paint a picture for what that looked like.
Yeah, so I started off, I was VP of commercial quality, and the idea was there was a VP of clinical and sort of external quality was my counterpart, and my remit was to get us from where we were, which was building a facility, not a lot of doors or windows on it, to the point that we could launch a product out of it, or at a minimum included in the BLA. Because at that point, all our clinical program patients were supplied by a CDMO, which was obviously the focal point of trying to ensure that facility got inspected and approved. We brought the ICTC along, the Iovance Cell Therapy Center, building that, throughout the pandemic, through a blizzard. we lost samples, our EMPQ samples, during a blizzard. And so, and the size of the team was 3 or 4 of us in total. So we grew in order to support building the facility. So we kind of went through a lot of phases where it was build the facility, phase in the systems that will be required for that facility, qualify that facility, start phasing in when can we do patients, when can we release different parts of the facility to start doing clinical manufacturing.
Yeah.
And then it was BLA ready, inspection ready, commercial ready, and that's kind of the path we took.
Yeah, nice. So what would you say when you went in? So what were the timelines that you were working towards from when you started to aiming for commercialization?
Yeah, so we had a back and forth with FDA around a potency set of potency assays and a potency matrix. That took some time, and we had to develop some new assays that were developed by the R&D team and then transferred into QC. And then we tested all of our clinical retains, which were, well north of 150 retains with new methods, and did sort of a comparability between the two methods, or between the new method and what the existing potency method was. And so, we had a lot of stuff like that we were doing, but we were, marching towards a BLA within a year from when the facility was being buttoned up. That got delayed through that potency matrix discussion. But we got that, once we got the retains tested and we got everything back on and into the, translated into the BLA, and FDA was happy to receive it, and then we were on our way.
Yeah, nice. What does that process like when you get the final nod? It must, you mentioned earlier, it's a great feeling and something that you're most proud of, I guess, in your career, because of the team you built, or the people that you had around you.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that, I guess there were two points where we all cheered. One was the approval of the BLA in February 2024, and then one was right after both inspections, but certainly after the ICTC inspection. That was quite a thunderous, joyous occasion, and it was, and it wasn't because there was 5 or 6 of us that knew how to do it. It was a collective of 100 more than 100 people that came together to do this. Some for the first time, some that were seasoned, but it was. The accomplishment was because of all of us, and it was a really huge accomplishment that everybody was able to take on and absorb, and in terms of their self-esteem, and it was just a great time, and see people that have never done something like that and to do it at the level that they did, it was quite amazing.
From the people that you had in your team, if they've never gone through a commercialization before. What did you, as a leader, what were the key things that you had to train them up on? Because I'm always interested to see, because a lot of people would never gone through a commercialization in quality, or particularly a cell therapy or gene therapy commercialization. And so it's often the mindset shift, I guess, that you're trying to develop in the company around that commercial experience. But how did you upskill your people in that process of getting to commercialization ready?
Yeah, it goes back to patience. So people learn at different, at different paces. So and something like sitting in front of an FDA investigator, it can be an unpleasant experience for many. So it's how do you create that environment in a safe way? So the best way to do that is to start with principles. Anytime you set a strategy for anything, so a strategy for inspection readiness, you start with 3 or 5 principles, and you always, once the team agrees on those principles, then you always focus on setting your strategy based on those principles, so that what it does is it diffuses sort of a little bit of the emotion. You always have to acknowledge the emotional side of every conversation if you want to have a successful one. But so when you set principles and we get down the road and there are arguments and debates and you can always say, well, let's reflect back to those principles. Are we meeting those? Do we need to adjust those? And if we are meeting those, then we take that argument out and move forward. So you kind of get in that setting where you kind of decharge the environment and then practice. So do mock inspections, you do them internally with your internal auditors, bring in consultants. If you have people from other parts of the business that don't know that part of the business, bring them over. One, they can learn. Two, they can also be completely objective in their auditing. And so that practice then takes down the emotion as well.
Yeah. Interesting. You talk about principles and to guide you there to fall back to. Could you go into a bit more detail around like what those principles were and how you use them in practice?
Yeah. So I'll give a real easy one. So the biggest part of inspections is building trust with the investigators. And so that comes with transparency, honesty. So, an easy principle is we're not going to lie during the inspection. It's something as simple as that. But it can get as deep as when we present our process validation with the errors we know that occurred during that process validation, we stand by the satisfactory success of that process validation. That is a principle I stick to. So I think those types of things really, really kind of help.
So what can you remember the 5 principles that you used?
Oh, no, it wasn't a total of 5. I think we got to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
One of them was listen first. So when the investigator speaks, listen to the question and then get clarity on what the question is. But turn if you can, turn the voice off in your head and listen to the question so that you answer it succinctly enough that it doesn't end up in a thread that goes on for days. So, that was definitely one, was listen first. Trust was in there. Listen first, build trust. That's about all I can remember, but there's at least 3 of them.
Yeah. Very good. And is that something that you came up with as a leader, or was that something you'd learnt from previous positions, or was that just general experience of dealing with the FDA and inspections?
Yeah, so I learned that as part of we had a core commercial cycle at GSK, and part of that was setting a coherent strategy. And so we went through principles and that process of setting strategy. So I brought that along in terms of just how do you do something, a big project, something you need a strategy around. So I brought that in. There was a group of us, it was basically the senior leadership team on site, the inspection lead, which was our director of compliance, who reported in to me. And I think that was about it. And then some SMEs. I think it was our kickoff. It was 18 or 20 people in the room. To kick off our inspection readiness.
Yeah, excellent. So, what year was that when you got the final nod of approval?
It was February of 2024.
February of 2024. Right. Okay. So nearly coming up to 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. The inspection was in August of 2023, so it will be 2 years now.
When you look back at that time, how do you feel, and what sort of emotions come to mind?
It's definitely there's a sense of relief. That team in the Navy Yard worked relentlessly for 4 years. Probably longer. I was there almost 4, but just weekends, nights, vacations didn't happen all the time, holidays. There was just such a commitment by everybody, not just around the inspection, but about everything, that the inspection and the approval were just a cap to an incredible amount of work that people put their livelihoods and their lives into. And so the emotion that comes up is just, there's a bit of gratitude for all the people that did all the work that they did.
Yeah.
And then certainly, what a great experience. And certainly it's just that the patients that will benefit from this therapy, as well as future patients and future administrative modalities for this medicine or this therapy, is just, it's a really incredible experience.
Yeah. Well, some practical advice then for countless companies that are going through a BLA process or an NDA process, for the first time. From a quality perspective, if I had to sort of pin you down to 3 things that you would give advice to quality leaders going through this process now, what would you say the most important 3 things are?
Number 1, never be up, never be down, just right in the middle. The leader going through that period of drug development, launch, inspection, approval, all that, they set the tone and the temperature for the facility and for the organization. So, right in the middle. There will be times that are crazy, and that's when you step away and find a trusted soul that you can talk to. So definitely, steady Eddie, right in the middle. Don't believe the first thing you hear, because the first person that gets to you has their view on everything. The second person has their view on everything. So it's, just stop, listen, absorb, and then decide. And then I think the other thing is, don't underestimate the value of how creative people can be when you give them a chance. And so the strategies we came up with on inspection, we had a mold investigation that we needed to explain. We had zillions of strategies around it, but it came up as part of an EM review. And the way that our QC VP handled it, she was at the table, was to explain it very succinctly so that we didn't go further into it. Otherwise, we would have been talking about that mold investigation for a while. We were very proud of how we handled it. But, pride is one thing, and explaining it and convincing somebody is another. And she did an incredible job on that, and it kept us moving. And so, it's not one person's opinion; it's the collective solution. So, and that's really those 3 things I think really help.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, it's core leadership stuff, isn't it? Communication, handling yourself. Like you say, you can't be 10 in one day, you can't be a 3 the next day. You have to be a 6 or a 7 or 7 or 8 most days. But how you come across and how you lead the team is important, and like you said, that clarity and communication. So really, when it boils down to it, the person at the top is, obviously in from a quality lens, there's so much on you, there's so much pressure. Like, how do you? That's if you're thrown into that position, is that kind of a learn on the job thing? Like, how did you get to that stage, or was that, are these sort of inherent skills that you've developed over your career?
No, on the last part. I think it's being curious, asking a lot of questions early on in your career, because people are afraid to ask questions. People. So when I was early on in my career, I was afraid to ask questions because I didn't want people to think I didn't know anything. But by getting past that and asking those questions, I learned a lot more. And as you go through life, you kind of pick up things along the way. But being open to asking, what is a good titer for monoclonal antibody upstream process. It's learning those things. Certainly, you can learn those in a academic setting, but to see the application of them and how it works, and there is some magic and nuance to biopharma upstream manufacturing. But it's just being open to asking questions and not being afraid of what people might think of your question.
Yeah. A quick just word around the culture of your quality team as that goes into commercialization. Like, how do you handle the growing company? How do you handle I suppose the overall quality culture of the organization as you're transitioning in that period? Is that something that is front of mind for you?
Yeah, it is a difficult transition, and you almost have to plan for. You have to plan at least 18 months in advance to understand what your commercial release process is going to entail. We didn't have the luxury of that time at Iovance when we were pulling it together. So the previous BLAs that I worked on were all in large pharma, so they had commercial. We just slid into a commercial plant. And when you build one and then try to put all the systems in place and then try to put a release process with a turnaround time that you have to commit to, you have to get FDA and the patients, because it's really important in autologous cell therapies that they know when they're getting their cells back. And, if you plan well enough in advance, you start to hire people that have that logic. So there's different logics at different settings and all sorts of parts of the world. And, that type of logic, you need to have some people that have that experience right off the bat. Trying to train somebody into that while you're also trying to do a launch is a recipe for failure. So you need those types of people that have that experience and they can bring everybody else along. And certainly having systems in place that are less bureaucratic and more action-oriented is really important as well. So the right people, and it doesn't have to be a full complement of this is commercial and this is clinical or R&D. It can be a mix, but you do need a couple of three people that have that commercial experience that know that things have to happen in a linear fashion for this to get out to back to the patient. So I think it takes a bit of that.
Yeah. What's the biggest difference going from clinical into commercial from a quality lens?
It's definitely the timing. So in cell and gene therapies and in cell therapies, you commit to a turnaround time, and you have to report on that turnaround time. So if something goes sideways, you have very little amount of time to make a decision on what to do with that patient's cells. And so in a clinical setting, you might have a little bit more time because you can converse back and forth with, say, the primary surgeon and or care physician or the doctor. So whereas in commercial, that turnaround time is you have to hit that, and not hitting that, it changes your reputation very quickly in the industry, and that is hard to get back. You can't buy your reputation.
Awesome. Couple of quick fire questions to cap off the conversation. First one: who's been the biggest inspiration to you in your life, and this can be personally or professionally?
I'll say personally, as helped me professionally, has been my wife. Actually, we've been through a tremendous amount of stuff. Everybody goes through a lot of stuff in life, and having a good partner to be there who allows you to focus on, the stuff that seems to be bothering you the most is it's hard to find, and it's really inspiring to see how she's handled some of the things that we've gone through as a family, as a strong leader. So I would say my wife.
Yeah, great answer. And last question, and you've spoken a bit about this already, but I'd love to sort of get your final thoughts for any aspiring quality leaders out there, growing up in their career and want to become a head of quality one day. What advice would you give them?
Don't forget that that you work with people. So I've been lucky that people have asked me through recently in my career, what are some theories on leadership? If you go on an interview for a job or something like that, and I always start with humanity, because especially in with cell therapies, cell and gene therapies, even CRISPR technology, it's such a manual process right now, and certainly automation is what's going to bring the accessibility down up, because the price will go down. But having actually, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, humanity. So it's humans that you're managing. They're manipulating human cells, and you're treating human patients. So humanity is a really important thing to remember when you're leading people. It's not just you. There's a world out there.
Well said, Andrew. That's been really good. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation, best of luck with everything that you've got going on. And really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time and the opportunity. So thanks.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.